Hi, everybody. I'm Missy Matthews. He's Mike Prasuta. The pick is in. The Steelers trading up to the 14th overall spot to take offensive tackle Broderick Jones out of Georgia. And Triv just moving up 3 spots. They give up a 4th rounder, but this is a position where they needed to add.
Yeah, and a guy they clearly valued, and they didn't jump up early, but they kind of let the thing play out. And as it progressed, the pick was getting closer and closer, and Broderick Jones was still on the board. There's still a couple cornerbacks on the board at the time of the Steelers selection when they moved up a couple of spots. And they land a guy who most people, if you study the draft, he was considered among the top 3 tackles. Now, maybe Peter Skoronski's a guard, maybe he's a tackle, but it was Skoronski, Paris Johnson of Ohio State, and this guy, Broderick Jones, all along as the cream of the crop at guard. You can see what he does here in some of these highlights, but I want to give you a little snippet of one that we're probably not going to see here because it was a nothing play, but I think it tells you a great deal about who Broderick Jones is. Early in the national championship game, Georgia runs a play on which he runs out to the flat. Looks like it's a screen action, right? Mm-hmm. Well, apparently the screen was either the second option or it was a delayed screen because Stetson Bennett, the quarterback, held the ball. Broderick Jones got to his spot out in the flat and stayed there and was aware of what was happening behind him and did not immediately run up the field and get a lineman downfield penalty. That told me 2 things. 1, he's pretty sharp football IQ-wise. 2, he's very well coached. These are both very good things. Dane Brugler, the NFL draft analyst for The Athletic, pointed out that Broderick Jones played the fewest number of college snaps among FBS offensive tackles in this class. So he's raw. He's a little bit of a lump of clay, but he's a 6'5"3/8", 311-pound lump of clay. Some other things that Brugler talks about: movement skills, raw power, and finishing violence. That's Dane Brugler's word, not mine. Pretty good things to have. Right now, let's talk about what some other people said about him in the pre-draft process. Daniel Jeremiah from the NFL Network, quote, "Once he gets his hands on you, he can turn you and torque you with his upper body. Once it's like a wrestling match up top, you're not getting away from him." And a couple of things that stand out, maybe they will in these highlights, maybe they won't, but he can play in space. He can get out in front of runs. They actually used him as a puller and a lead blocker at Georgia because of his tremendous athleticism. He's got a basketball background. He's got great feet. You look at him, he doesn't look like he weighs 311 pounds. He can really move. When he has to block somebody out in space in the passing game, a lot of big guys struggle against a smaller target to actually get there and hit the guy. Not Broderick Jones. He can find his guy and deliver. There is a lot to like about Broderick Jones, and again, not a finished product. One other little thing that needs to be pointed out: Georgia's been pretty good the last couple of years.
Yeah.
Broderick Jones wasn't a starter at the start of the season 2 years ago, but by the end of the season, he came in for injury. He played almost the entirety of the first national championship game. He was a starter last year, and as Jeremiah pointed out during the pre-draft process, Georgia practices number 1s against number 1s. So he's gone against some pretty good players over the years. This guy's just getting started, and already he's really impressive, Missy.
And I think after last year, you take Kenny Pickett, 20th overall. You address the inside of the offensive line during free agency. This was a position that they needed to add to as well. And, you talked about the violence, the different things. That's what they want this O-line to play like. They want to continue running the ball like they did at the end of the 2022 season. Also, he had the fastest 40 time of all offensive linemen at the combine. So add that to, your list of things to like about this guy.
Yeah, big guys that can move, right? That's what everybody's after all over the field. And that ability to get out in space and not just get out there, but be very effective when he's out there. There you see them running around his end, which they did a lot. I mentioned his success as a puller. There they can go inside. And I love the athletic basketball background. That bodes well. I like the fact that he's only going to be, he's going to turn 22 on May the 16th. Just a 3-year player at Georgia after redshirting. So he's got his best football in front of him, and he's already played some really good football. How does that apply? Well, the Steelers had 2 tackles, Dan Moore and Chukwuma Okorafor. who was the swing guy? Who's the third guy? Which you need, right? Now they have three. Let the competition begin and see how they sort it out in OTAs and training camp and into next season.
And what training camp in the past few years have we not seen a competition for those tackle positions as well? And Coach Tomlin and Omar Khan, the Steelers GM, will be speaking momentarily. We'll bring that to you live.
There's a space block like I was talking about. He hits number 24, the corner or the safety. That's hard to do for a big guy. They don't always I think Charles Davis of the NFL Network made this point. A lot of big guys miss on those kind of plays. Broderick Jones doesn't miss.
I go back to the pre-draft press conference between Coach Tomlin and Omar Khan saying, if there was somebody special, they'd feel comfortable moving up. Now, like you said, they didn't jump up 10 spots, but they knew that this was a guy they were targeting. And the way that this draft was falling, they felt like maybe holding those 3 spots wasn't going to be enough, so they did move up, and I'm excited to hear what they have to say about him as well.
Yeah, and clearly they had options as it unfolded. Brian Branch, the safety from Alabama, was still on the board. Joey Porter Jr., cornerback from Penn State, was still on the board. Jones was there. Christian Gonzalez, cornerback from Oregon, another guy who Porter and Gonzalez were 2 of the perceived top 3 corners. So as this started unfolding, Missy, and I think some of the things that I don't want to say shocked us because it's the NFL draft and we should never be shocked anymore, but nobody knew if Bijan Robinson, the running back from Texas, was going to be picked ahead of the Steelers initially at 17. We didn't think that Jamar Gibbs, the running back from Alabama, would be picked ahead of the Steelers, who were initially at 17. When those guys go, that pushes down cornerbacks and tackles, and it kind of came to the Steelers, and they responded to that good fortune by making a little move, not a major, huge move in terms of cost and how far up they went, but they got their guy clearly.
Right, and you go back to 2012 when the Steelers drafted Dave DeCastro, not the same position, but an offensive lineman, somebody you need, and was a mainstay on that line for how many years?
Yeah, and it's a great analogy. Sometimes you have to be aware enough of what's going on around you and not just fixated on, okay, we need this guy or we need this position. And they had been pretty upfront that because of the moves made in veteran free agency and who they were able to retain from last year's team, they didn't go into this draft. They didn't go shopping hungry, right? Is that the simplest analogy? They had themselves covered to the point where they could let it just come to them. Broderick Jones is a really exciting player.
And going back through the Steelers' PR notes, the last time the Steelers picked an offensive tackle in the first round, 1996, Jamian Stevens.
Yeah. This ought to work out better than that.
Well, just showing the history of, what this position could potentially mean. You're building an offense around Kenny Pickett. We saw what they were able to do at the end of last season. And as we said, the Steelers moved up 3 spots, trading with the New England Patriots. They gave the Patriots their 17th overall pick and also their 4th round pick, which is number 120 overall. Pursuit of that means there will be no picks for the Steelers currently in rounds 4, 5, or 6, but tomorrow also a big day. But today it is all about Broderick Jones.
Yeah, I think, and Mike Tomlin and Omar Khan were pretty upfront about their anticipation that pick 32 will be in play, at least in terms of it becoming a conversation starter, because we'll have a whole day between when we wrap up tonight and when they eventually get around to resuming the draft tomorrow. So the opportunity to move back, if they so desire, will probably be there. There's another one of these plays out in space. Look at him getting out in front. Just a big guy that can move. I keep repeating myself. Athletic background, basketball background. A lot to like in terms of his attributes and his potential. I want to say something else, too. Georgia, back-to-back national championships, competitive practices, and the Bulldogs have a reputation, at least from what I've been able to glean, for having character players, competitive players, players who put the team first and players who want to win more than anything else. I think we got a little taste of that with George Pickens last year. This is a program you want to mind. It's been Alabama for a while. Georgia has now either caught up to the Crimson Tide or surpassed Alabama based on the 2 national championships in a row. Why not? There he is out in space again, destroying a defensive back. Plenty to work with and plenty to already excite you in Broderick Jones.
And Broderick Jones, the NFL Network had posted a short video. He is not in Kansas City with some of the other potential first round draft picks. So it looks like he's at home with family and friends. So it will be interesting once we get a chance to hear from him as well.
Yeah, there he is out on the wing again. And you know, people might look at that and say, wow, you're 300 pounds. Of course you should block a cornerback. But that guy's not just standing there letting himself get blocked. He, in theory, should be shiftier and more elusive, and they still get blocked.
All right, well, we are going to take a quick break, but coming up very soon from the UPMC Rooney Sports Complex, head coach Mike Tomlin and GM Omar Khan will be addressing the Steelers' 14th overall pick, offensive tackle Broderick Jones out of Georgia. We'll be right back.